Welcome back, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer. So now let's talk about silver. See, silver is a direct threat to the dollar, precious metals in general. And that's why usually people pushing stocks or something along those lines will downplay silver's value. A lot of times just misleading, leaving out important context and for obvious reasons. See, when you are in debt, you are a slave to the system. You are not in control. When you invest into precious metals, you have taken the power, the control away from them and put it into your own hands. They don't want that. Even if you invest into stocks, anything else that's still pegged to the dollar, that's like switching seats on the Titanic. Is going down with it. You need something that is detached from the dollar, like precious metals or crypto. Crypto, for obvious reasons, isn't as safe and isn't as valuable since it doesn't have real world uses to the extent that silver does. But regardless, you can see why silver is a threat to the dollar. Well, I want to go over why this is such an important thing to understand. The dollar has lost 98% of its original purchasing power. We are $33,116,680,000,000 in debt, and it's only going down more. It's not ever going to be fixed. It is not designed to be fixed. We are getting ourselves out of debt by replacing it with more debt. That's like trying to pay off a credit card with another credit card. This problem is impossible to fix. There has to be a reset. See, I only say alternatives because there is no solution. The alternative is precious metals, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. I've dug up several different articles. Check this out. How much will silver be when the US dollar collapses? What will happen to silver if the dollar does collapse? How much will silver be worth if the dollar collapses? Should you invest into silver as a hedge against inflation? How will gold and silver coins be used after the dollar collapses? How much will silver be worth if the US dollar collapses in value? You can see I dug up several different articles all talking about similar things, and I want to dive into the meat and potatoes of each one. I think this is going to be a very educational video, and if you enjoy this video, please like the video and make sure you subscribe because I post every single day. So, how much will silver be worth when the US dollar collapses? Silver may soar, and here's why. With US public debt crossing $30 trillion and now $33 trillion, many people worry that the global reserve currency, the US dollar, may ultimately collapse in the near future. If that were to happen, then what would be the value of a widely used commodity such as silver? In order to understand how silver will be valued during a hyperinflationary collapse, it's hard to think in terms of US dollar amounts. That is because the US dollar would essentially be worthless if it were to collapse in value. In a sense, the price of silver would be infinite if measured in terms of the US dollar. And here's the thing, when you understand the difference between a dollar and the difference between an ounce of silver or a dollar's value versus silver's true value, it starts to click more. Spot price is essentially irrelevant because you're comparing something that is infinite. An ounce of silver is always going to have 1 ounce of silver inside of it, regardless of who says that 1 ounce coin is worth what, because the coin's value is the 1 ounce of silver inside of it, not the price tag attached to it. That price tag attached to it is ever declining. 98% is a factual percentage. It will hit 99% eventually, and then 100%. So, what makes silver such a valuable commodity in a US dollar collapse? After you finish this article, make sure... Okay. Number one, silver has a limited supply. Unlike the US dollar, which can be printed out of thin air, you have to dig silver out of the ground in order to extract its value. Also, there is a limited supply of silver in the ground and in circulation. Currently, it is estimated that there is around $1.3 trillion of silver on the entire planet. Compare that to the US dollar, which has 2.3 trillion in circulation. However, 80% of that 2.3 trillion in US dollars has been created since 2020. That is nuts. In the past, bull runs in silver have led to a lack of supply within bullion markets. As an example, during the bull market or the bull run in the 2000s, silver coins were simply unavailable. When there was a limited supply, the premiums on these coins was anywhere from 20 to 40% over the spot price. In effect, the limited supply causes the price of silver to go even higher due to panic selling and hoarding. And think about this. Even beyond premiums, the price of silver goes even higher due to panic selling and hoarding. Supply and demand are the fundamentals. Low supply, high demand pushes the price up. Diminishing supply, rising demand, which is happening, equals what? Pushing the price up. 1 + 1 = 2. Silver is used in manufacturing. Unlike gold, silver is widely used in manufacturing. In fact, silver is used in batteries, dentistry, glass coatings, LED chips, medicine, photography, photovoltaic cells, PV cells, which is solar energy, nuclear reactors, and RFID chips for tracking parcels and shipments worldwide, semiconductors, touch screens, water purification, and more. And because of this, much of the silver in the world is taken out of circulation and otherwise destroyed, right? It's thrown away in landfills and never to be recycled, where most gold is remelted since it's used for coins and jewelry. During bull markets and commodities, silver often outperforms other precious metals. This is even more true if there is a bull market in manufacturing. Right now, the global economy continues to expand. China is actually the largest consumer of silver. We are seeing billions of people move from poverty into the working class. That creates incredible demand for automobiles and electronics. This could further be the expansion, which could push the price even higher. And think about this. Every automobile company by the year 2030 will be electric. We are flooding solar panels across the globe. Both of those use hundreds of millions of ounces each year. We exceeded 1.21 billion ounces in demand this year, which is record-breaking supply deficits. We've never in the history of the world been in the red this much in terms of the silver shortage this year. But guess what? It's only going to get worse because we are advancing technologically, needing more and more and more silver, but there's less and less and less of it. Low supply, high demand pushes the price up. Silver is widely used and accepted as money. Just about everywhere you go in the world, you can use silver as money. Because of this, it has a lot of value. And additionally, silver is expected to be the money of choice for everyday transactions in the event of a collapse in the US dollar. In the event of a hyperinflationary collapse, you can expect to see lots of independent stores or private sellers accept precious metals such as gold and silver for their transactions. So let's go to another article. This one is, what would happen to the dollar, or what if the dollar crashes, what would happen to silver? That's what it's actually titled. In recent years, the dollar's been a bit shaky in terms of how it's performing on both the national and international levels, and more so than ever with the BRICS nations, etc. This has led to the speculation of the US dollar collapsing at some point in the future. And if you invest in a precious metal such as silver, you may be wondering if your investments are safe if the dollar does collapse. We go over what you need to keep in mind below. I like this. Silver's value could increase. The value of silver isn't directly linked to the dollar. And here's the point. Silver won't make you rich. Silver is what makes you rich. That's the wealth. That is the wealth. It's not buying silver for cheap and then selling it once the price skyrockets and then getting rich. No. The value is owning silver. Experts believe silver's value would likely increase significantly if the dollar collapsed. One reason is because there's a limited supply of silver, meaning as demand increases, if the dollar collapses, the value of silver will actually go up, since there's not an indefinite amount of silver left. Also, silver has a wide range of industrial applications in the energy and automotive industries, as well as some more unique uses, such as in chips and cheese track packages, yada yada. Um, it's best to keep an eye on silver pricing trends, which, yes, I like to say that. And the reason for that is if you are just blindly investing and not understanding the asset or the investment that you are investing in, you're more likely for failure. And that is because you're not understanding why you're investing into that thing. A lot of people hopped on the Bitcoin wagon without understanding why Bitcoin had potential. A lot of people jump on the silver bandwagon not understanding why silver is valuable or has potential. So as soon as the price drops or corrects, then you panic because you don't understand the value. You are going off of faith, and you need that confirmation. And this is the most important. This is why, actually. You need confirmation and validation for the price to go higher. So when you don't have that validation, you worry and you panic sell. With true silver stackers that don't need that validation, when the price goes down, we still buy because we know it's going to go back up and we know it's cheap and on discount. But if you don't understand that, then you're going to think, oh man, what am I doing? You'll second guess yourself and you'll just inevitably sell. Learning from the past. Will silver be valuable if the US dollar plummets? To assess silver's total performance, it's necessary to look back at previous stock market downturns: 1978, 1982, 1990, 1998, 2009, and 2011. The world's greatest and most severe market collapses happened. Silver did not fare well in market downturns according to federal records. The price differences were minor, near inconsequential, but silver's vast industrial use, more than half of the supply, and sales were the clinchers. While virtually all of these events resulted in a drop of the price of silver, the events from 1978 to 2009 were particularly noteworthy. And yes, there's different cases. Both of these are what pushed silver to $50. You had 2008 credit financial crisis, recession/depression, billion-dollar stimulus, then 3 years later leading to $50 silver, right? So 2008 to 2011, silver hit $50 because of those instances. And if you look today, very similar things: recession/depression, credit financial crisis, trillion-dollar stimulus, global pandemic, and a war. So if that pushed silver to $50 back then, and things were nowhere near as severe or extreme, then what could it do to the price of silver today? And I'm sure that's kind of what they're talking about, since they mentioned looking or learning from the past. The expected consequences differed from prior analogous events because silver improved its potency in both instances. Price volatility should have resulted in a price decrease. However, in the 1970s, the market price increased by 15% and remained stable until the crisis ended in 2009. These two anomalies offer a sliver of proof that silver can resist political and economic turmoil. And yeah, I do think that silver will take on a life of its own, regardless of what the dollar is doing, regardless of what stock market volatility is doing, regardless of what Bitcoin's price is doing, even regardless of what gold is doing. Silver will do what it does because it has completely different uses. Unfortunately, there are several plausible situations that could lead to the immediate and unpredicted collapse of the US dollar. With the fall of the US dollar, currencies suddenly collapse, and there's panic selling of assets as people rush to liquidate their assets and run to gold, but no one will take the risk. Although there are different scenarios where the US dollar collapses, the two most plausible culprits are underlying vulnerability and viable currency alternatives. And I like that they use the word alternatives. There is no solution to this problem. So, we already know that silver is a good investment. I'm not going to jump into that. Let's move on to the third article. Should you invest in silver as an inflation hedge? Given that silver is a precious metal, you might wonder whether you could use it as an inflation hedge like gold for a fraction of the price. After all, silver only costs about $24 an ounce as of August 23rd, while the price of gold is $1,900. The answer is that silver does have similar investing characteristics to gold, including a guard against rising consumer prices, but it doesn't function in exactly the same way as the yellow metal, and it's a smaller market which can contribute to volatility. And if you're thinking about investing in silver as an inflation hedge, here are several factors to consider. See, if you're looking to invest in the silver for solely this reason, I would recommend gold. There's many different reasons why precious metals, even more specifically silver, have potential, have opportunity. It's not just the micro, it's also the macro. It's not just in dollar terms or the monetary side of things. It's not just because the dollar's collapsing. It's not just a hedge against inflation. There's a whole other side of it, which is the industrial side. Gold is just the monetary side. It's just the monetary side. There is no gold shortage because most gold is remelted, reused, recycled, and it's not used industrially. So, I mean, there's a small percentage, but most of it's used in coins and jewelry. So, where gold is benefiting with silver, that's just that. Silver, I say, is the best of both worlds because it has a whole other side where there's potential for it to rise in value. So, this fourth article, or fifth, how will gold and silver coins be used after the dollar collapses? I really like this article because it switches things up from what we previously discussed. Talks about legal tender laws, businesses that may accept gold and silver, exchanging gold and silver, bartering, underground market shopping, lots of different things beyond just inflation, yada yada. So, this is talking about how silver coins will be used after. Those who purchase gold and silver do so for a variety of reasons. Those reasons may include investment purposes, hedge against inflation, and or for protection against financial and economic crisis. However, one of their primary reasons for doing so is to protect against a potential and likely dollar collapse, especially considering central banks around the world have pursued loose monetary policies since the pandemic in hopes of stimulating economic growth. There's a real possibility their citizens will lose faith in their own currency. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a very, very deep wound where you need stitches or surgery. It's kind of like, well, just throw the money in there right now, don't worry about it later, type of thing, right? There are countless examples of this occurring. Most recently, we've seen this happen in Turkey, Venezuela, Argentina, and Zimbabwe, where they are experiencing mass or hyperinflation. See, like the Zimbabwe $30 trillion bill. You see people holding signs that say broke billionaire, like their money is worth pennies. In fact, at the time of writing this, most of the world is experiencing nearly double-digit inflation, which has taken a toll on the spending power of their citizens. We know that the US dollar is the world's reserve currency, but recently it's kind of getting dethroned as countries are opting out, saying, why does the United States have their hands in our pockets? Let's change that and create our own currency or trade with, themselves. And it makes sense that they're creating a digital currency backed by physical commodities. I mean, digital instant transactions, but it's also backed, so it's like a better version of cryptocurrency since it's actually backed by something, not just a number on a screen. And they don't have to use the dollar. They don't have to have America dipping their hands in their pockets. So since it's a world reserve currency, it's viewed as a safe haven. So you can see if that's not the fact anymore, why that would be so dangerous. From a practical standpoint, do you know how they should be used if we're experiencing a monetary collapse? They're talking about eagles or maples. Here we outline 5 ways we predict how gold and silver coins may be used as barter or to conduct commerce. But before we discuss that, you have to understand the legal tender laws currently in place. And it's actually switching, since there is like 4 states, I believe now, that have reverted back to the gold standard, accepting silver to even pay off debts. I think there's like 20-something states that have signed up for this. Only 4 have passed so far. I made an entire video covering each state, actually, individually. Very interesting stuff. I never thought that would be possible in today's day and age, but it's happening. But regardless, it definitely is something that is going to, or they're going to try to make it work. And even Federal Chairman Jerome Powell said in one of the FOMC meetings one time, he says, and I clipped this actually on a podcast before, he says he can see one day something coexisting or even replacing the dollar. For Federal Chairman Jerome Powell to admit that is pretty crazy. So let's talk about sales tax and stuff. Businesses that will accept gold and silver. If you're looking at this from like a prepping perspective, then you want to go junk silver or fractional, because let's say you have a 1 ounce coin and you're trading or bartering for something that's worth less than an ounce. What are you going to do? Take a chainsaw to that coin and cut off a piece of it? Especially if you're bartering, silver's value will be extremely high, because if you're trading or bartering, that means the dollar most likely collapsed and times are very different. So you would need fractional, like mercury dimes or 1/10 ounce rounds, which are about the same, or a 1/4 ounce round, or it is equivalent to like a barber quarter, or 1/2 ounce round is a Walking Liberty $half. So it's very similar in terms of from that perspective, but junk silver is becoming a lot more expensive, so I would recommend rounds if you're going the fractional route. There is some benefits to constitutional silver, but recently it's just really expensive. Back when I first started, I would recommend junk silver for those reasons, that it's legal tender and not just a round from some private mint. But nowadays times are changing. So let's just go through the summary. So in conclusion, we're not predicting an imminent collapse of the dollar. However, historically speaking, all fiat currency have failed. Yeah, every single fiat system has failed throughout history. They only last around a century. The dollar is actually the longest standing one, but it's going to fail. Like I said, like I showed you earlier, we're $33 trillion in debt. The dollar's lost 98% of its purchasing power. I think it's like 44% in the last 20 years. It's getting worse, and it's not going to get better, and it will collapse someday. It will not exist forever, and times are becoming more serious than ever, and I think it's very important to take control of your wealth, because like I said earlier, if you are in debt, you're a slave to the system. They are in control, so it's time to take the control back and purchase silver and gold. With that said, I'm going to wrap this video up here. I will link these articles in the description. If you want to purchase silver, I'll throw a little commercial on. Send an email to info@mousefranklin.com. Let them know Silver Slayer sent you. I'm also doing a giveaway. May the luckiest stacker win. Thanks for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.